Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Owls Air Guns. Today we are taking a look at the heart of the 3622 PCP rifle, and that is the valve itself. Now, in looking at the valve, it would appear to be a standard Crossman 1377, 1322 rear of the valve with a unique or 3622 specific front attached to it here. Looking at the front, we can see that there is the inlet for air, the seal to seal off that tube and create the air chamber, if you will, and our air tube, and then the valve with the internals. Today we're going to go ahead and take this apart and look at the internals. And we're doing this in anticipation of potentially having to do modification for the 3622 PCP rifle to pistol project. I'm hoping we can get away with just some basic tuning and not have to modify the valve itself, but I'm also very curious about this valve and how it may differ internally or may not differ internally from the 1377 and 1322 valve that we'll be comparing it to. So, yeah, I thought that might be interesting, so I'm recording this as an episode, and let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I have to do is take this valve apart. And it's on there very tight. I'm not going to do that by hand. And I don't really want to mar this valve body. Now, it doesn't really affect anything if it does get marks on it back here. Really the same with this area up here. If this O-ring is doing its job, the air is being sealed before it gets to this portion. But I don't know. I would like to do a decent job of it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is use painter's tape and wrap a couple of well, more than a couple, but wrap some number of rounds of painter's tape around each of these and then go ahead and put those in a vise and loosen that so that we can disassemble the valve and take a look at the internals. All right, we'll get to that right away. All right, so after taping up both ends or both sides of it with painter's tape, I went ahead and put it in a vise. And this, for those of you that don't know, is a drill press vise. Bought this years ago, works very well on your drill press, but works really well as a tabletop vise too. It's got a lot of weight to it. It is very precise, and yeah, I often use it for projects like this. Now, I was very fortunate in that once I clamped it into the vise, and I clamped in the back half. Reason I did that is the valve is aluminum, and I wanted to be sure, just in case I did apply perhaps too much pressure in the vise, that if I forced it at all out of the round, I wasn't misshaping the part that seals the air. So I don't think I misshaped anything. But as I tightened it up, I went ahead and fortunately I was able to loosen the valve at that point just using my hands. So I did go ahead and just twist it a little bit, and it's fully loose now. So we can go ahead and take it out of the vise. Slide the vise out of the way there. And we can go ahead and open up our valve. Now, of course, I've still got painter's tape on here, and actually I'm going to leave that on because that'll protect it just in case I have to put it in the vise to reseal it. And ooh, now just looking, and I will compare it to the 1322 or 1377 valve. I'll find one for us and we can take a look. But that looks like a considerably more substantial valve spring than I've seen in the others. And then also looking inside, we see that, let me see what I can get as far as a view. We have a very substantial cavity that is free of any protrusions, no threads or anything like that in there. It's very smooth walled, so that makes a really nice air plenum and air storage area. And then when we go to this part, we can see that it does have full threads here. And when we go to this part, looks to be pretty standard. Obviously, we've got to pop it in there, and I don't know that that is any different or more substantial. It does look like it has a thicker shaft. Yeah, I'm going to pull out one of those other valves and we'll have to compare them. But this does look more similar to a Discovery poppet or something like that. I don't know that the material is any different, but boy, that shaft seems more substantial. And all right, so inside there we've really only got two parts. And if we're looking to increase power, well, let's see where we are once we reassemble this and put it back together. But if we do need to increase the power of our valve, that will need to be accomplished by increasing our hammer spring tension, would be the one area we can improve it through, or by reducing the strength of this valve or this spring, in order to increase the dwell time on how long the valve is open before this spring forces it closed again. The other thing we can play with is potentially the inlet coming into this chamber. Now that's interesting because the chamber actually seems like it only starts about there, and we've already seen that this is removed. We've got a groove running all the way around there, so that makes sense. But we could go ahead and potentially enlarge this hole. I don't know whether or not it's sipping from the air tube. You know, with the CO2 bulk gun, if we knock that valve open, it empties everything in the valve and then also will draw from the chamber too. I don't know if this is some kind of limiter or restrictor to help increase the shot count in the rifle, and if we open that up, we may get more shots out of it. In a Discovery valve or the old CO2 valves, this was all the way open, and it just sipped right from the air tube. So that would be something we can look at as we, like I said, if we get into a spot where we have to try and get a little more power out of this valve. But I think oh man, that is stiff. I do think we've seen what we wanted to see here. We got the one O-ring that seals those. That's, of course, in good shape still. All right. Well, that project will continue along, and I'll go ahead and tighten this back up. But thank you for joining me on another episode of Val's Airgun, where we took a look at the 3622 valve in preparation for our project on turning that rifle into a pistol. And just out of general knowledge, I think a lot of people are going to be tuning these 3622s. I think you can get a lot of power out of the hammer screw adjustment that they have built into those, but you know, I suspect at some point people are going to look for a little more and potentially start modding these valves too. So this is what we're working with. All right, thanks a lot, and I will see you guys on the next one.